really has created a situation where she's not able to come to work and has decided to retire. She's enjoyed her 11 years in Lebanon as an instructional, she wrote instructional aid, instructional assistant, spanning all three schools. Her last assignment was at Lyman Memorial High School. She writes that she has learned a lot and that she has learned as much or more than the students that she's worked with. She has a particular affinity for the class of 22 and writes that they will be forever with her. The high school was a wonderful place to work. The administration was always available and willing to listen and help with any issue. She thanks Jane and Samantha specifically for that, as well as her co-workers for all they do with the students, and the teachers for being welcoming when she was in their classrooms. She also worked in an ag program for part of her time and really enjoyed that experience. So that's Virginia Chamberlain, instructional assistant. We also have a letter of resignation from Heather Farley. Heather was one of our CNAs. I had mentioned at a previous meeting that we were going to be receiving a letter of resignation. Her work during COVID has taken her back out of the school, and she's doing other things in her CNA capacity. We also have a letter of resignation from Chantel, pronounce that correctly, Fields. So anyway, she is instructional associate also, Lyman Memorial High School. Her last day was Friday, November 27th. Chantel is actually pursuing career as a teacher. We also have a letter from elementary school secretary Sonia Hartnett. She is writing that with great sadness she is leaving the Lebanon Public Schools, so her last day was actually yesterday. She's made long-lasting friendships here at LES and she feels that it was truly family. Her decision to leave was not an easy one, but it was the right one for herself and her family. She left our district to work in a neighboring district in a slightly different capacity with tech and the power school system for that district. She wrote that in her time here in Lebanon, she's worn many hats. She's been an instructional associate. She worked as part-time custodian in the summer, and then she was also administrative secretary. It has been quite a journey, and she writes specifically about Principal Rita Keelis Glover. She writes Rita, she will miss her daily lives and conversations with her, and the friendship and being a great team. Her letter does also mention the stresses of being a school secretary, in particular in the times of COVID, she just wanted the board to be aware of the challenges faced by our secretaries. And so that's Sonia. And then the last letter is a piece of communication from Principal Rita Keelis Glover, and it is an action item later in the board's agenda. This is a request for financial reimbursement for unused vacation time. There's 3 days. Rita was unable to use all of her vacation time due to commitments at the school, in particular due to COVID-19. And you'll see on there that I wrote a little note verifying that on more than one occasion
of the LEA and reading consultant at the Lebanon Middle School. I have a letter to read that was written by teachers and staff at the middle school and signed by both teachers and instructional assistants. December 8th, 2020. Dear Superintendent Angeli and Board of Education members, as the people in Colorado make decisions about school in the next few weeks, please consider the views of those in the classrooms. We initially were told that COVID-19 doesn't spread in schools and therefore we are safe. Then we are quarantined knowing we were exposed to students with the virus, including an incident where student engagement behavior could potentially expose others, and now it turns out to have been actively infected with the coronavirus at the time. Multiple students are being tested due to close proximity with that student in the building. This is not how we wanted to spend our December. Our return to school after the holidays was done with no increased safety protocols, and we are paying for it. In a survey given by our LEA Teachers Union, 78.5% of teachers stated that they were uncomfortable returning following our Thanksgiving break. The Teachers Union suggested 3 different options following our holiday. 1, to be in distance learning for 10 school days to minimize the risk following holiday festivities. 2, to go into half days with meal times where the risk is high. Or 3, to go into hybrid for 10 days. None were implemented. Furthermore, communication with families was not complete. Some families did not get the Trailshare message that our school was moved to full distance learning and had to be told on Monday morning if they attempted to drop their children off. In addition, some contact tracing was not made until 3 days after notice of the positive test. This means that families were following their usual weekend plans and potentially infected others in the community. Please consider the realities we place in our schools. There are situations beyond our control that are putting staff and students in danger. The lack of social distancing, particularly when combined with full in-person learning around the holidays, we know that families and others are gathering outside of school without adhering to proper safety protocols, and an increase in community COVID transmission creates a dangerous environment in our Lebanon schools. As those charged with running our schools, we need to do something to lessen these risks. Any of the options listed above by the Lebanon Education Association to the holiday season, 14 days following our holiday break, would be a step in the right direction. Thank you, Lebanon Middle Staff members. And this letter is signed by Abby Cornell, Eric O'Shea, Erica Strong, J.F. Alvarez, Sean Lucas, Barbara Archer, Paige Picard, Amy Reynolds, John Kosowski, Cynthia Violet, Chris McLean, Megan Huntington, Bailey Mildred, Christina Mason, Jeff O'Shea, Eric Welch Collins, Adam Reynolds, Catherine Fowler, Christopher Andrews, Talia Rosa, Keiko Francesco, Chris Avery, Dave Osman, Terry Wilson, Lou Magata, and members of Service Employees International Union Local 2001, Sandra Svedlari, Nicole Michelle, Beth Shue, Michael Visa, Denise Lasco, Donna Eliza. Members at our school are very concerned and truly fear for their safety and in turn the safety of their families and of course for the safety of their students. As Kathy so eloquently said, we all want to be with our students, but sometimes the balance tips the other way and it becomes imperative to think about safety first. We're very concerned about the setup within our classrooms where we do not have the distance that has been recommended, certainly not 6 feet. Barely 4 feet, sometimes less than that. Another big concern, as mentioned in the letter, is lunches. Children eat their lunches in the classroom. They have their masks off at that time, and this is a potential spread for the disease. In addition, there are some concern about cleaning, especially in the evening hours, and teachers are worried that not everything is being done to make people feel comfortable in their classrooms. And then another issue which we all had over the morning on Monday, at a time when we really are relying on distance learning, either because some schools are out or because we have some members of our classroom who are in distance learning, we must ensure that we have reliable internet service. We know that the technology group worked valiantly to get that in place. We need to know that first and foremost, we can rely on our leaders to make sure that we have the tools that we need to teach our students and that we are safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there we can connect with them. All right, let's move on to our reports of the committee. Let's go ahead and start with Mark. Would you mind starting with us on negotiations?
Negotiations, we've been working with two bargaining units for contracts. So we have a contract with the secretary group, and the other group, the IAs, are still ongoing.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And we will be discussing that in executive session later tonight as secretary. Danelle, curriculum?
Curriculum committee did not meet, but we have first round meeting. And our second round interviews will be next week.
Great, thank you. Did everybody catch that? Okay. John, superintendent eval.
Superintendent evaluation did not meet.
Safety and security advisor?
No report.
Okay, governance, we did not meet, but, we will be discussing more during, executive session as far as our next steps in our intern selection. Maureen, policy. Dawn, communication. Nicole, finance and facilities.
Okay, so we just met this evening. In a nutshell, we talked about the capital budget. We're requesting $186,000 for our capital request, and that includes painting projects at Lyman, the bucket list, the district truck, the LMS van lift, electrical upgrade, line striping, crack sealing, engineering services, district painting, auditorium lighting upgrade at Lyman, line replacement at Lyman, and district tourism hardware. In addition, we are also requesting $100,000 for technology, and that includes $40,000 of refreshing of the student technology, as well as upgrades elsewhere. Athletics, I believe it's $30,000 that athletics is requesting, and they're predominantly looking to refinish the gym floor at Lyman. Operating expenses we talked about, this includes full-time secretaries at all three schools. Two of them, well, one of them is actually, hi Dalton. Want to be done first?
No, go ahead, finish up now.
All right, so, overall, it's looking to be a 5% increase. So adding the full-time secretary, but they're on a 10-month schedule, not a 12-month. The other two that are currently, not half-time, sorry. Some custodial staff, including an IT tech. This assistant principal at Lyman has become full-time, an additional social worker and or psychologist. We're going to have a social studies teacher at Lyman, as well as the second health teacher that is required by the state. We're looking to keep the fourth grade teacher that was added this past year at LES. We're predicting that health insurance may increase to about 5%. Heating oil may be increasing to 15 cents a gallon. And we may have some unemployment liabilities. Next, we discussed the lighting update. As you remember that we're going to have a company come in and do an audit of all three schools to see if we can upgrade the lighting. And that will be presented at the next Board of Ed meeting. And then also the Lyman oil tank project should be finished by the end of this year. Next meeting will be next week.
Oh, you take great notes over there. That's it all. Matt, East time. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll go back to the student representatives report since we have Delton. Hi, Delton.
Sorry about that. My internet crashed at the very worst time.
We understand.
Alright, so, hi guys. To start, a complaint heard from more than enough students is that they feel that they get less one-on-one attention from teachers when online learning. I really asked around, and this was the one that I got the most. The environment from when you're distant isn't quite as friendly, because any small confusion or personal question that you have is essentially broadcasted to the rest of the class. So we kind of pressure students to just not say anything and really kind of miss the material. So I think in general, students are schools are open as they aren't in the building, I'm estimating because is what it's like for all of my classes. It's kind of unsettling, because they got traced, like, we didn't realize in contact with them. So it was a little, just have a couple of kids. Seniors, I think we just wrapped up senior projects, so it was really difficult to do from home, but I think the in-class periods every day really helped them with that. And finally, I was wondering if you guys had any questions you wanted to ask me, and if there was anything you guys wanted to, if there was something you guys wanted to give.
So, Delton, you were kind of cutting in and out a little bit, but let me see if I can summarize. And can you hear me okay? I feel like he said that there were about he's heard that when students are distance learning, they receive less or they report less one-on-one attention from teachers. It's more difficult to voice their questions.
Yes, I can. Sorry.
Okay, good. And so I'm going to summarize because you're a little bit broken up. And I think you said that there's about 1/3 of students, from your observation, not in the classroom right now. Is that what everybody else said? Okay, good. Oh, hi.
I moved closer to my internet out of my room, so
There we go.
yeah.
That's much better. So, Delton, I think to summarize what we heard was that you are noticing less, or students are reporting to you that there's less one-on-one attention from teachers when they're distance learning, and
Yes, that's correct.
and also maybe students who are distance learning are less apt to ask questions because it's kind of in a public forum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. And then the one you said something about 1/3.
Yeah, I can just say all that again.
All right, go ahead.
The internet in my room is just terrible. I said students are kind of because I said I think about like 1/3 of the students aren't in the building. That was just my estimate because that's about how many kids were missing from all of my classes. Most of that was online learning from that they chose to do distance, and some of that is they got contact traced. I know yesterday a couple of seniors got pulled out of their second period class in the middle of the class period, so that was kind of unnerving for the students. I just wanted to let you know that because I think they finally got traced back in the middle of a class period, so they just pulled them out in the middle of it. I also how seniors found it. Senior project finally wrapped up for the big essay portion. All that's left is the presentations, and I think they found it. We generally found it kind of difficult to work at home because it was difficult to find motivation. But I think the fact that we had a core class every single day with just direct contact with the teacher and like one-on-one, we could work on with them one-on-one. That really helped.
Awesome, Delton. Wherever you're sitting was much better. So thank you for reporting twice for us.
Well, and just one more thing. I was wondering if you guys had any other questions for me about anything else specific, and if there was anything that if you guys had like a statement or anything like that to tell the student body in general.
Great idea. Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, Delton, I think you're the greatest. This is Nicole Gilkey. So based on your report, would you say that the overall feelings of the student body at Lyman are they nervous or are they okay? How are you feeling that they're
I'm feeling that they're kind of nervous at the moment because we were missing like a lot of substitute teachers or something, so I know a school is about to shut down, and they really don't want it to shut down because they really enjoy having that one-on-one teacher discussions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Delton. Any other questions for Delton? Thank you very much, Delton.
Sorry, we don't have a statement for you.
Well, that's totally fine. That's kind of on the spot on my end. So,
Be prepared next
Yeah,
time.
we will have one next time, Joe.
well, all right, that's good enough.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on to administrative reports. Is there anything additional that was not included in the packet?
So any of the administrators here that want to add anything to their reports?
Just one thing. In my report, I had listed at the very end that we had several athletes over the course of the fall sports season that ended up as All-State. And I listed 2 sports that did not, at the time, announce their All-State selections. One of those sports has. Volleyball did announce their All-State selections. We had 2 student athletes that made All-State in volleyball. Helen Megson and Anna Matheson. So they should be a part of that list as well. We're still waiting on swimming. There's a lot of talk going around. They had a hard time trying to figure out times, and they were swimming not in meets. They were just like in a pool with themselves swimming and keeping time. So we're waiting on. We have a one swimmer, and we're waiting to see how she fared. Okay.
We'll move on to the report of the superintendent, enrollment.
So in your board packet, you do have the enrollment report. You might actually have 2. There was one dated as of December 4th that had a total for the magnet schools at 22, but we did an update of that, and that not because we received tuition bills this morning, and so we actually have 2 more students that are attending the ACT school, and so there are 7 there, not 5, so we have 24 students in the magnet schools. Our own schools, we've seen an overall increase of 2 students enrolled in our school as of December 2nd. So a gain of 1 student at the elementary school. The middle school stayed flat. This shows the high school went down 1, so now I'm trying to figure out why it's increasing. 2. I know
Grade 9
I
went up 2 students.
Which one? No.
Then grade 10 went down 2.
No. Overall total is down 1, flat, and up 1, but it shows an overall increase of 2. So I'm not sure of that. But anyway, there wasn't a big change in enrollment from November to December. Oh, so that's where the mistake is. Yeah, because we have an increase of 2 in grade 7 and a decrease of 1 in grade 6, so we're at 296. So that's where the other increase is. Right? So not a big change month to month from November to December of this school.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This magnet school number, did it start off as 24 data this year? Because I seem to remember this used to be 30.
So that was the number was Some of them came back to us and some could be homeschooled.
The high school is free.
Okay. Thank you.
Set for a moment. We will move on to school updates.
Yeah, so I did want to have a discussion regarding the impact COVID-19 has been having on the schools, and also a little bit of an explanation of the decision to close individual schools rather than move the entire district into distance learning. So I commiserate with the teachers, the IAs, the administrators, everybody who works in this district. Everybody is concerned about COVID-19 and the potential for spread within the schools. One of the pieces that was made during public comment that the teachers, the staff in general have been told that COVID-19 does not spread in schools. The wording on that is not quite accurate. But what I've been reporting to the students, the families, our staff, and to the board is that we have not had any spread of COVID-19 in our schools. That doesn't mean it can't at some point happen. It just hasn't. Right? So we haven't had any spread in our schools. So part of what I attended is I attend a ton of meetings around COVID-19. So I attend meetings with the Connecticut Department of Public Health. I attend meetings with the Connecticut State Department of Education. I attend the Town of Lebanon's Emergency Management Planning meetings. These are all weekly meetings. I attend the Ursa NASA Superintendent Group meets every week now. The used to meet just once a month. We've been meeting once a week for months. So there's been a lot of sharing of what's working, what's not working, and a continual update on the guidance. So this morning, Tuesday mornings at 8 o'clock is the weekly call with the Department of Public Health and the State Department of Education. So officials of those departments, not always the commissioners of those departments, but a lot of times they do pop in and out and have things to tell us. One thing that we learned today is that Addendum 4, and this is the one that I've shared a few times because it's been updated, is the one that has the gradient of recommendations on how schools are supposed to respond. The original document had clear distinctions between in-school learning, hybrid learning, and then go out for distance learning. And then the most recent document, this one here, did away with those clear distinctions and really created a continuum of how we're supposed to respond. What they told us this morning is that they would like to retire this document and put it in the COVID-19 response artifacts because they no longer feel that having 25 or more, this is the rate, and the average daily rate of 25 or higher, where schools and districts should be just closing up shop and moving to distance learning, right? And so that is something that I have been putting in my letters and in my communications that I send out on a weekly basis. That this guidance this addendum altogether because we heard numbers today from Kathleen Smith, right? And they're startling, right? Only because Lebanon hasn't been there already. There are communities in Connecticut where that number is a little number compared to what they're experiencing, right? And I don't want us to get to that number. I don't, because it is a scary prospect for people. I get that. But the guidance every week becomes very strong, not just locally, when I discuss with Uncas Health District, but on the state level, and if you're watching the national folks talk, Dr. Fauci and other people at the national level, they're pushing for other sectors of our society to dial back or close. But they are all saying that schools really need to do whatever it is to try to stay open for students. In our district, we have taken a measured approach. So I get all this information from the state agencies, our local health district. I get the updates on numbers immediately from Patrick McCormick at Uncas Health. Kathleen Smith is sending me emails with updated numbers, so I am inundated with updates, right? And then I will confer with the folks that I'm supposed to confer with. And the approach has been, instead of closing all the schools and sending all the children home because of an incident that occurred at one school, to close the school where the issue is at, or to quarantine kids if that is appropriate, and keep the rest of the students coming in. So in our most recent situation, we had 2 students at the middle school on Friday that we got information on that they had tested positive, right? That information came at a time that was well after the school let out. Most of the people were not here anymore. They were gone for the weekend, right? When I was a teacher, the kids used to joke that I must sleep in school and sleep in my suit, right? Because that's what kids think. And then when they run into you out in society at a grocery store or somewhere else, it's almost startling for them to think of educators as being anywhere else other than school, right? But teachers are people too, administrators are people too, and so when school lets out, at the end of the day, they have errands to run, they have things to do, right? So they're not always here. So on Friday, with the timing of when we found out, everybody was basically gone. And so I had to contact the principal. He was off doing something with his son that had to come to an end. He had to come back to work. And then before we can make calls to people's homes, we have to contact all the staff, who most of them were not here. And that's teachers and paraprofessionals and anybody else that might have worked with in close proximity to the students who have close cases. So the first contact, in the process of contact tracing, the first thing we do is contact the staff. Then each of the principals have seating charts. They review those with the teachers, right? And then the students that might be sitting near the child that is tested positive are identified. Then all of those kids, you have to look them up in public school to see if they were even in school, right? Because you don't contact trace somebody who was not even there. So then you have to do all the attendance checking, right? Then you have to find out if they ride the bus. So kids are all Then usually there are several follow-up questions. Right? So some of the questions that could be asked are, the parents want to know if it's okay for them to go to work. So then whoever's making the call has to explain that the child is a close contact, the parent is close contact of their own child, but their child doesn't have COVID-19, so a close contact of a close contact is not a contact. So you have that kind of conversation with parents. And so each call takes a little bit of time. So this whole process takes hours, right, to do it, right? And that is one of the things. It's not a quick thing. And I know that on Friday, some people got contacted and as calls were made again today to finish up the contacting, and there were concerns that were raised that, we had the information on Friday, how come the call waited until, I didn't get my call until Monday. It's just because the process takes so long, and the timing of when we were told, when we were informed of the close contact. That's why I put in my letter that there would be calls made over the next few days. I try to let people know that there were cases at the school and that this was going to take days to get all the contact tracing done and all the calls made. I received an email from one parent who explained that, if we could do it faster, we should do it faster because kids are having sleepovers and people are out visiting their families. But those are the very things that when I write in my letters that we need to be safe even outside of school, those are the things that, we all want to do those because we desire to have normal human interactions with other people. But we're being told all the time that you really shouldn't be having social gatherings. You really shouldn't be with folks that you don't live with. And so, sleepovers, that should not be an activity that kids are still engaging in. And so, I don't know that there's much we can do to speed things up, but we're always working on it. So whenever we have to do this process, and we've had to do it now at a few different schools, we debrief, right? And so we're going to debrief again. Then we got notified over the weekend that there was another case at the high school level. Sam and Jay and the nurse at Lyman, Kristen Franson, they were able to get a lot of the contact tracing done over the weekend, right? And so it seemed like one school handled it a lot quicker than the other one, but there was more hands on deck for the high school staff. Case, and when you have just one case, there's less calls to make. It's like a surface area thing, right? If you have two cases, there's more contacts, and so it just takes longer, right? And so the decision to put the middle school into distance learning was based on the number of staff that were close contacts and the fact that there weren't going to be subs, right? And so even though the staff that are close contacts can teach remotely because they're not sick, and the kids can learn in a remote environment, if I were to keep the school open, I got to have adults supervising the kids that are still in the classroom, right? Because we still have most of our parents sending their children to our schools. And so if they're sending kids into the schools, then we got to have adults. And if I don't have adults supervising kids, I got to close the school. And so that's what happened at the middle school. At the high school, we decided to keep the high school open because we felt pretty confident about the other students that were contact tracing that became the close contacts. I know I wrote in an email or a letter that there were no staff members. Later, after that letter went out, we did identify an IA that was a close contact. So there was one staff member at the high school that was a close contact. But it's tight at the high school. We don't... Right now, the decision was to keep the high school open. If there are people, so people still have the normal things going on in their lives. They still, like we had somebody fall and break their leg, and we have other normal life things going on. And so if we lose staff due to those things, or staff members who have a spouse that catches COVID. Now, the staff member is a close contact to somebody that's outside of the school environment, but they still have to stay home because they're a close contact. And so if we have those situations arise and we're not able to fill the sub requirement, then we might have to go into distance learning at the high school. It is something that we're striving not to do. It does create a little bit of a pressure on our other staff members because now they're filling in and covering for each other. It's already a bit of a stressful situation, and so asking staff members to cover for each other adds to that. So there's a little bit of exacerbation of anxieties and concerns. And so if that becomes an untenable situation, we will have to shut down Lyman. But right now, we're like walking a tightrope at the high school with the coverage. But we have the middle school, because we felt like it was unsafe due to COVID-19 issues. We felt like if we could have quarantined everybody and still provided coverage, we could have kept the school open. We just didn't have enough people to do that. We've been fortunate. We haven't had to close the elementary school at all. And so, I think that that's a positive because distance learning with our youngest students is probably the most challenging thing that we do, right, when we're in distance learning. And so we're able to keep the elementary school open. Sarah asked me to let you know, like, what percentage of kids are distance learning at each of the schools. At LES, when I checked yesterday, there was 19% of the students in distance learning. And that's either because a parent has opted for distance learning or there is a quarantining that might be occurring for some of our students at the elementary school. The middle school, 100% right now, distance learning. At the high school, Delton was almost dead on, 34% when I checked yesterday. So his estimate was right on. And so, like Delton said, some of that is the parents have opted their students for distance learning until this thing is over. Or, we have kids that are quarantining now because they've been close contacts either to the student that was identified over the weekend, or they've had close contacts in their personal lives outside of school. And so that's where we're at. At the meeting this morning also, we were told that Item 5 is going to get a rewrite. It was supposed to come out this afternoon, but the state, for whatever reason, they could receive emails today, but they couldn't send any. So I don't know what's going on with that, but we did receive word that their email system was malfunctioning. But Addendum 5 is the Advance Achieve Addendum on interim guidance for responding to COVID-19 scenarios in the Connecticut schools. This came out twice already, August 6th and updated November 3rd, so we're going to get a new update on that, and we're also going to get a new update on Addendum 9, which is the contact tracing scenarios in schools. We're going to get an update on this one as well. As far as I know, this is still the original document, August 27th. I don't think there's been an update on this one since then. And the new updates will be coming basically because of the shift in the CDC guidance on how long quarantine periods should be. And so CDC is still recommending 14 days, but they're saying that it could be reduced to 10 days with a negative test. And then there is even a scenario where quarantine could be reduced down to 7 days. The doctors from the State Department of Public Health this morning said that is not their preferred scenario, but they think the 10-day quarantine would be appropriate if there was a negative test. I think that kind of a change could clear up some confusion that people have, because right now, if you are a close contact, you have to quarantine for 14 days, but if you actually have COVID-19, you only have to quarantine for 10. Right? And so that is confusing for people, and it's because after the 10 days from the date of your test, you shouldn't be contagious any longer. Right? In theory, right? There's always there's no guarantee, but you shouldn't be contagious anymore. You quarantine for 14 days when you're a close contact, because it could be a 14-day incubation period. Right? And then we also have scenarios where kids could be quarantining for 24 days because mom or dad has COVID. And so the last day that mom or dad are considered, so at the end of their 10-day quarantine, that's when the students' 14 days start. And so they're actually out of school for 24 days. And so keeping track of all the time takes hours, and our school nurses they create spreadsheets, and they're keeping track of all staff members and students who are quarantining to make sure that they're coming back, that they don't come back earlier than they're supposed to.
All right, thanks, Bob. It is my assumption that multiple members of the board have questions. So what I'd like to do, if that's all right with you, if we just kind of go around and ask the questions that we'd like to ask.
Sure.
Works. Matt, you want to start over there?
Well, first off, I want to make a statement to the board. I work in anesthesia at the hospital. Every single day I go to work, I come in contact with a COVID patient. Every single day. I wear an N95 mask. Are N95 masks available to the staff?
So we do have some supply of N95 masks. They are used for our medical staff, and then anyone who may be of heightened risk. So we do
wear N95 masks. We wear face shields. We're at work. So if the teachers are concerned about their health, why don't they do that themselves?
So,
Because I walk into COVID. I mean, I'm right in their face with COVID. Right in their face. I'm just saying.
I understand that, though, but one thing, though, Matt, just keep in mind that you have lots of training and safety under your belt, and we're also dealing with children who are touching, and, there's...
I understand.
It's a different situation than the medical in one way, but I do appreciate your comment for sure.
But we have the masks we have masks, we have face shields, we have gowns, and so we do have the additional PPE, and we do have staff member that wear the additional PPE in certain circumstances, but it's not really required in a school environment for all situations.
Okay, Nicole?
Because I've heard from two major bodies, which is the teachers and the students, basically the high school, that both parties are nervous. I'm curious to know if you've heard from any parents and what do they think?
So the parents who are nervous, they tend to contact me more often than the ones that are okay with what's happening. And so I do hear occasionally from a parent that feels like we should close the schools and go to distance learning. One thing about the reopening plan and the requirement from the state is that parents have the option to do that themselves, right? And so there is always that option. I do hear occasionally from parents, like I heard from a couple of parents, I heard from one parent twice, right before Thanksgiving, saying on Facebook there's something posted that the schools are not going to be opening up after Thanksgiving. So I had to write it back saying that that's not true, but her point was to urge that we don't close the schools. With the numbers I'm giving you, right now parents are sending their kids to school. We're starting to see, and this was talked about this morning too at the meeting that I was on, we're starting to see some parents pull their kids out because they don't want them quarantining during Christmas, because they still have plans to visit with relatives over Christmas, right? And so again, those are the normal human things that we want to be able to do. And so some parents are pulling their kids out for deals so they could go do it. I caution in my letters, you need to be safe even outside of school. So
the reason why I'm asking this is because I understand, like, I'm of the camp of parents that I'm a single parent and I have to go to work every day. I don't have the option of having my kids stay home, or else I'd have to find someone else to watch them, and that could be very costly. And I totally understand that's why some parents might say, no, keep the schools open. However, at the same time, I can feel the pandemonium starting in this town of people getting nervous of getting sick. So I know instruction, we're talking about distance learning. Are we considering hybrid we're talking about a week and a half, basically, until the Christmas break or the holiday break. Is hybrid on the table at all for this last week and a half?
Yeah, so hybrid is on the table. And I've had a couple of conversations with individuals on my admin team. And so that will be a conversation that I have, once I have more numbers this week and see where we're at, right? But, one thing that we still have to consider is in hybrid, all my teachers still come to work, right? And so all my teachers can still be close contacts if somebody in the ends up testing positive, right? And so it still may come down to a staffing issue on whether or not we're able to keep schools open.
Thanks, Nicole. Dawn?
So my comment or my thoughts are kind of in line with yours. Like, I'm constantly thinking about stability and what we are doing or not doing, or partially doing, because nothing is binary. There are so many options in all of them about stability. So I think most of you know, and now everybody will know, that I chose to distance learn my children. I have the privilege of working from home, so there is that. Not out of fear of anybody getting sick, but because I cannot live my life wondering if they're going to be in school tomorrow. A snow day is different, but like, I cannot approach my life not knowing, not having control over that. There's still a system working within a system that no longer works. And so I want to see us talking and thinking about how we could just reimagine this. You know, we worry about all of our kids' mental health. I'm very concerned about our staff's mental health. This push that don't close, don't open, let's do something. How can we support a family who needs to work outside of the house instead of just open or close the schools and that's it? There has to be other options out there. I don't know what they are, but we're all very brilliant people, so I imagine that there has to be.
Maureen? And you talk to Patrick often, and he's good with us still being open without any issues?
Yes. So I talked to Patrick at least 3 or 4 times a week, including on Sundays now. We have I call him every Sunday now for the last 2 or 3 weeks to see if anything's happened over the week.
Thanks, Bob. Mark?
I was just going to ask Bob if you can share that document that you talked about. That's very troubling. You know, that it was good yesterday, and then this morning is no longer good. But if you can share when, or did they give you any kind of indication when the new document would be available?
So
you're trying to make decisions here in real time. So.
Yeah, Addendum 4. One of the. I don't know if it was a super or somebody else on the call this morning asked if Addendum 4 was going to be updated again. And that's when the comment was made that they would prefer to get rid of it and archive it and not use it at all. But that's not likely to happen either. So unless it's revised, it is the document, right? And so the document makes people feel that once you hit 25 cases on on the average daily rate, that means we're supposed to go to distance learning. But when they speak to the document and we're getting this communication verbally, the advice is not that at all. Because, as I said, what they keep saying is this was written in a time when nobody could fathom that the rate would hit 25. Now we have communities in Connecticut that are over 50, and I think a couple of them have hit 60, right? And so even in those communities, they're saying that schools should do whatever they can to remain open. And we, in the Ursa NASA group and in superintendent meetings that I attend, there are superintendents from districts of communities that have some of these real high numbers, and none of them are reporting any cases of transmission in the schools. Not a single one. And so they feel similar to what we've been doing. If they could go back, some of them have come up and said, if we could go back and reverse a decision to go into distance learning, they might do that because we've learned that in those communities where the schools went into distance learning, it didn't slow down the spread of COVID-19. It didn't do anything to mitigate that, right? Nothing whatsoever. And because the spread is occurring outside of the schools for the most part, right?
It is troubling. The document doesn't reflect what people really think should be happening.
And that's why we asked, somebody asked this morning, we need an updated one of these. And that was not promised. There was the other two. We were supposed to get them today, but they have a glitch in their email system.
The other quick comment is just appreciate all the work. When there is a case, all the work that happens, how you have to contact everybody and, trying to reach people, because that could be very challenging in itself. So thank you for that.
Most of that is done at the school level.
Danelle?
I have a lot of jumbled thoughts, so I'll try to keep it short. The first thing when you were talking I was thinking of is the last time the middle school had to close, there was a very quick reaction, and that stirred up a lot of anxiety. The kids that were in the class that found out a staff member had it were quickly rushed to the gym so they could spread out and quickly called, "Come, I need to be picked up. You can't ride the bus home." And it was already 2:20. My daughter told me people were in the class praying that they wouldn't die. So that's the opposite reaction of why was it taking so long on the weekend to contact trace. So we need to be careful about the reactions that we have to move too quickly. I know it takes a long time. My initial reaction when I read the letter was, why is it going to take so long? In the meantime, people are going places, but I understand that there's so many things to trace, so many people to contact. I don't understand how a student could not be in close contact with a teacher. That was my most recent thing. If you're in school, aren't you with a teacher? Like at the Lyman case?
Yeah, so the close contact is within 6 or fewer feet for 15 or more minutes over a 24-hour period. So if I'm the teacher and I'm at the front of the room and the child who tests positive is more than 6 feet away from me, then we're not close contact.
So if they're in the back of the classroom and they're seating chart, then they're not in close contact with the teacher, even if they're in the class. Is that right?
That is correct, unless the teacher has spent time working in closer proximity to that student.
Okay. The only other thing I'd say is, hearing the two that spoke about the anxiety at the elementary school, middle school as well, there are safety measures that we've done everything we can as a board to provide equipment, I think, and the only thing that they feel that would make them feel better is to close. So we all have our own experience with it. Some think it's better to stay in school, some think it's not, but what can we do in the meantime to help with their fear, anxiety, confidence levels? It's not an easy answer, but again, like Mark said, I appreciate all the work that's done behind the scenes to keep us all on track as much as we can be.
Thanks, Danelle. John?
Yeah, one quick thing, maybe one not so quick. The addendum 4 thing, I really struggle with that, in that it almost seems like when reality doesn't reflect those numbers, well, then it will reflect the document. And that's the cynic in me, but I'm not so sure that I appreciate that, walking those numbers back. Second, I appreciate totally what the administration, what Bob, what you guys have done to mitigate and individualize and keep people in school. But when I look at these numbers, and I think all the experts say that our numbers are going to go up.
Keep going.
All the numbers are going to go up as we go. And I asked you the last time we had a meeting, how are the subs? And I know that's a big issue. I almost think that just not knowing, I hear that the staff is nervous, the kids are nervous for a different reason, but the idea of not knowing might be even worse than making a decision, even if it's preemptive, and say, maybe we'll go into distance for this long, and we'll look at it after that. I can say that easily. I don't have a kid in school, I do understand the parents, but I'd like to have some sort of, not normal, some sort of, I guess more of a uniform decision, so we're not as reactive as we are right now.
Thanks, John. Alexis?
I'm going to echo what everyone else said. You know, the work that goes behind the scenes, I don't think we really truly all know what it is, but we can appreciate that. I would suggest, though, that we kind of focus more on how we're going to prevent some of these frustrations, because I think that we are going to have more of them. So while we may know the debrief was nice to hear, because I don't think this one went very smoothly, but I think the focus should be on how can we make it go smoothly next time. That will make the community members, our teachers, as well as our parents feel a little bit better about what could happen when it happens again, because I'm sure it's going to. I'm looking at the numbers. When we first started, I believe we were at 21% were distance learning, so we are already well over that number. I do like the option of still having parents have the decision. So, you know, I'm in the camp where I can go either way. I don't have young children, but I still have one in the system. So I do like the option of having the parents have that decision, but I can understand your position where the knowing would take away some of the anxiety. So, you know, I also firmly believe that the state has a guidance for a reason, and while I don't always agree with their guidance, we have to trust it, and they're not being very helpful, so I don't know how we're supposed to react, but we can't pick and choose when we're going to listen to the state guidance and when we're not. So it's all this, you know, we all have it in our back pocket how to get through this, but I mean, we all made great comments. I really think we just need to go back to, there was a meeting where Sarah was like, wow, we're really in this together. And right now, I think we're starting to disseminate, you know, but we're all saying the same thing, but I think we need to come back together a little bit more if we're really going to get through February, whatever the magic date may be.
Thanks. You know, this board is so smart. You said a lot of really smart things, and Bob, thank you for your report. It's difficult. You know, this is a hard time. It's a hard time for me personally. It's a hard time for me professionally. It's a hard time for us here and for you and for everybody at home. There are things that I'm unhappy with how we handled things. There are things that I'm so proud. Following the state guidelines, they're not making this easy on us, making these decisions. It's not fair. It's not fair to us local board of eds that have to discuss this and work this through, because we are not educated in this. We are not scientists necessarily. But we have to make the most of what we have. I am in the camp that I heard, and I know this to be true, because when we started school, we did not have 6 feet of distance between our students. We knew that. We did the best we could, but we knew that. Now, more than ever, is important for us to have that space. In my heart of hearts, you know, I feel I'm very nervous about all of our students in the building at all time. And I know that 34% right now at Lyman are distance learning, but that is a good chunk of them are quarantined right now, I'm sure. So that number might be a little bit misleading. I think we really need to think about how many kids are in our classrooms and how much space is between them, especially when they're unmasked eating, because they can't go outside right now because it's too cold. I do think that we need to really pay close attention to the sub-coverage up there. It's not okay for multiple classes to have to go into the same space just to have coverage. So I am leaning, I mean, I would hope that we would entertain a motion for hybrid, or entertain that idea for hybrid at least now until the start of the school year, where, you know, we have some more stability, hopefully, and consistency and answer texting. I just think that right now we're sort of like on the edge of, okay, if we were at 25 before the state was saying, you know, districts can close. Well, what about that medium? What about that hybrid model that we discussed for a while? I know it's not in favor. I know how hard it is as a teacher. I really do. But, you know, I really think that we need to be considering something other than 100% in-person learning right now. That's my personal opinion, but means no more than everybody else's. Danelle?
Just to touch on what the teachers were saying, I'm curious, the teachers feel better if you're in a hybrid model, because, as you said, the teachers are still going to be in school full-time, just with 2 different groups. But if you have half the numbers there, does that make teachers feel more comfortable?
What do you think, Bob?
Kathleen?
I don't know.
I think it would.
Cut the risk in half.
Yeah, it cuts the risk in
The
half.
hybrid model is the way to go. The data shows it. I hate this part. I wouldn't support any amount of it if the data didn't show it. Now that the data shows it for sure, that's got to be the move. I mean, it's not even. Download the data set from the state, and you will see it. We have to shift to hybrid. Like, maybe we about to write the letter tomorrow, hopefully. And it's painful because I think the students need to be in school. I really do. And
I think we all agree on that for sure, Ken. Yeah.
So, it's a matter of public health. Now it's a matter of public health, not staffing.
It's something that certainly has to be told to the parents ahead of time, though, because they have to make arrangements.
We wouldn't be doing it tomorrow, right? We'd have to give them some lead time.
All 3 schools should, in my recommendation, all 3 schools should move to at least hybrid by Thursday, at a minimum. It's obvious.
Well, not the middle school. They're quarantined until the 16th. So just 2 schools.
Through January 11th, or whatever. Because I think there's going to be, after Thanksgiving break, people are going to travel during this year to Rhode Island. It's the highest outbreak in the country. I mean, that's not a joke. That's 30 minutes away. And then one kid has a contact with one relative, brings it back here, and affects the whole classroom. That's not, I mean, I know that there's guidance, I know that there's data. And like I said, I'm the last person who would ever support, ever, any amount of distance learning. But I don't think that we have a choice.
Thanks, Ken.
Matt?
Is there any reason, as you pointed out, that the elementary school seems to have much lower incidence? If you need to go to some modified thing, why all the schools have to be the same?
So there is no reason that all the schools have to be the same. And there are plenty of districts that are doing one model with upper grades and a different model with elementary school, because it's harder to do distance learning with the youngest kids, right? And so the schools don't have to be the same, and nor do the grade levels within a school have to be the same.
However, the teachers are all the same. The ones in the elementary school are not going to be comfortable if the other 2 schools are hybrid and they're not, because now they're the ones at risk. So,
well, it's equity versus an equal thing, right? And so, one model is the best model for a particular school or grade level. That should be the one that we use.
Thank you, Bob. I think that it's been helpful to have this discussion, and I think that you can use the discussion to help guide your decisions.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. All right, let's move on to our finance report, 2020-2021 budget.
So this was covered in, actually 2021 was not covered. So in your packet, there is a budget, one-page budget, a 2-page budget summary put together by Bob, talking about positive budget impacts and some adverse budget impacts that we've had during COVID-19. We're not at the point where we can tell you exactly if we're, we can tell you that right now, we're not running a deficit, but we can't tell you exactly how much ahead we might be, so to speak, with this year's budget, because there are still some unknowns that we're dealing with. Part of what you see in your packet talks about one of our contractor paychecks did a changeover from an old system to a new system. They're still working out the kinks, and so we don't have accurate data yet in all of our salary line items. Bob, you would know the more intimate details, so if you want to pick up the conversation.
Yeah, briefly, we migrated from an older system to a newer system. We were one of the few districts that were still using their old system, and they gave us the opportunity to upgrade at no cost. So we started that process in late September and went live with it in October after having several training sessions. All the financial data was correct in terms of processing individual paychecks and things like that, but they kind of blew up the general ledger interface so that charges were going to the wrong accounts. So it made it impossible to accurately look at the financials and know where we stand. For instance, a couple examples, certified staff in art might have been going to an IA account. The curriculum director, the special ed director's salary was going to pupil services. So you couldn't make judgments as to where you're going to end the year. And the second payroll in November, we did not migrate into the financials because of those reasons, because it was all wrong. Didn't have it on time, so the November statement is actually understated by the amount of the November the second payroll number that's been since imported into the financials. So that's wasn't supposed to go the way it did. They promised us it would be a smooth transition, but if anyone's done a data migration before, those things do happen. So it should be corrected completely with this payroll. I'll know on December 10th when we process payroll on Thursday. It's been very time consuming too to go back and make the adjustments and move expenses from one account to the other.
Sounds it.
All right, so just as we experienced in the spring when COVID-19 first caused us to close schools, there were savings that came out of that because there were less field trips, there weren't any spring sports, those kinds of issues. So we are experiencing that again this year, even though Principal Apicelli, spoke to our fall sports state athletes. We didn't play full seasons, and so we had less bus expenses. We had fewer official expenses. It was a curtailed season. Right now, the winter sports season is delayed until January 19th, and there's speculation that we may not have a winter sports season at all. And so there will be negative experience for our students. There's going to be a positive impact on the budget, right? When those things happen. We also had some negative impacts. On the second page, you see that potential increases to health insurance expenses. This is due to increased staff that we've had to bring on. So there's salary expenses there for the custodians, the CNAs. We've had to buy increased cleaning supplies, etc. So we're going to get some reimbursement, and Bob wrote that in there in the second paragraph on the first page. So that all has to play against each other, right? All the work that we did on the ventilation fans at the schools, so 3 different schools, a bunch of fans, that's going to be between $50,000 and $60,000, that work, right? So it was a big expense, and so we have to see where how that plays into the areas where there are savings. And so all of that is still in the works. Jock is doing the switch project right now. If we have some monies available, we'll be talking to the board about doing the access points to further increase our internet capabilities in the schools. So right now, we think we're in a pretty good shape. The food service program, we don't have a report specific to that tonight, but we think that there really hasn't been any negative impact on the food service program.
The coronavirus relief fund that comes to the district is $145,419, and that's expenses through December 30th. I'll be submitting the reimbursement request by the end of December. You have to liquidate those funds within 90 days. Although it's not related to this fiscal year, I did work with Valerie on the town side, and she did submit Board of Ed reimbursement requests for expenses that were incurred prior to June 30th, and she did receive approval in the funds of $19,303.87. So both Valerie and I are of the opinion that that should be a credit to the 1920 school year and go towards increasing the year-end balance that we returned back to the town. So we're waiting for confirmation from our auditor. And she will be able to submit more expenses from July 1st going forward that will potentially expenses that we would exceed $145,000. So if we've spent more than $145,000, those additional expenses she can submit on the town side.
And then the money goes to the town?
No, that would come back as a credit to the Board of Ed.
That would come to the Board of Ed, but the 19 that goes to the town?
Well, it comes back to the Board of Ed, but it's against the 1920 school year, which has already expired, so our belief is that should be added to the surplus that we had that in turn would go to the non-lapsing fund. So it's like, in the end, it should increase the amount that the Board of Finance would allocate to the non-lapsing fund for the school year 1920.
Okay, that would be great. In theory.
In theory.
Okay, so that was the 2021 budget and the COVID-19 relief funds. Were there any questions for Bob or I? And then for 21-22, Nicole already spoke about what we talked about at the Finance and Facility Subcommittee meeting earlier. Basically, we're at a 5% increase at the first go-round. There's going to be modifications moving forward with that. Right now, that request includes carryover of some of the expenditures that are related to COVID-19 regarding additional staff. So if we know that COVID's going to go away, we could rethink some of that stuff, and so that's really could be predicated on vaccine and how quickly that comes to pass. It would be nice if it would come to pass prior to a town referendum on the budget. But there is also some carryover of previous requests, such as additional social worker, or that's been modified to perhaps an additional school psychologist for the high school. So, and then reinstating the part-time secretaries to full-time and reinstating the high school assistant principal to full-time. And so those are things that are included right now.
I have a comment, Bob, or a question, actually. So I feel very strongly about pushing to the Board of Finance the fact that the elementary school needs to have a better ventilation system. What would that fall under, that giant request?
So that's really a school building project because of the work and the expense that it would entail. Partly because you might also want to tie in work on the windows at the same time.
So that wouldn't fall under like a capital or totally separate?
That would be a totally separate thing. A school building project, it could be handled partially through a school building grant, and you form a school building committee on the town side that oversees the project with support and input from the board.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, great. Looks like, any other questions on the budget? No? Okay, looks like we will, thank you, Bob. We will move to discussion item, review the 7th grade schedule.
So at the last board meeting, we had discussed the possibility of increasing the middle school science position from a 0.6 to 1.0 FTE. You had asked to see a schedule and what the changes would be. So Principal Laskarzewski, so the board has a copy of the schedule, Rob. If you could just explain the impacts.
Sure. Before I get started, I just wanted to say that it's very hard to find a science teacher, and we're very fortunate that we were able to have Mr. Schultes willing to come to Lebanon. He's been awesome with the 7th grade, and if you haven't met him, that's him against the back wall right there. So I want to have an introduction for him. So with scheduling, the puzzle is always you want to try to balance your classes. So going into this, I knew that we wanted to create a class of 17 students for a new section, because then that evenly divides the science sections into the new additional class. So what I did is I looked at other classes, social studies and language arts, and you can see on, for example, G period in Mr. Andrews on the very first line had 23 students in the current setup. So you look for anomalies like that have larger sections, and then my goal is to find 17 students in those classes that presently are larger than all the other ones. Then I cross-reference those students into the existing science classes that they have, so I don't pull them all from the same existing science class, so I have to do that cross-reference as part of the puzzle, and then create a new science section from those 17 students, and then also be able to now put them into, for example, using the language arts example, put them into a different language arts period that will still remain balanced. I hope that makes sense, because if you haven't done scheduling, it's kind of confusing, but the gist is you want to end up with balanced numbers. So you pull from the classes that are overpopulated to create your new one. And you don't want to have a ton of schedule changes. So by doing this, the 17 students that I have, they're only going to have their one class. For example, they're pulled from social studies G period and they're in B period science, but they're now going to be in D period science, then you're going to flip them into the science period for their social studies, their original one. So that's what I did. So the new section would have 17 students, and the other benefit by doing this is currently the science teacher is only here in the morning, and then he leaves, so he's not able to contribute during SRBI. He's not able to be part of reading, and then another huge piece is he's not able to be part of the team when they have their team meetings, parent meetings, because he's already gone by that time of the day. So there's a lot of other things that come into play when you have a part-timer that they miss out on, and it's really not an optimum situation ever. And frankly, as a science teacher, they can write their own ticket. There's so many openings in this state. So another thing, obviously, is having anyone part-time is a revolving door. It just ends up that way.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is this, like, let's say this is approved and ready to go, are you thinking January starting this?
Yes, I would do it right after the midterm point.
Which is end of January?
Right around the third week.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
No? Do we have space?
Yes. The science classrooms, fortunately, are really big. They're very deep rooms, probably because they have the old islands that have the sinks and the gas lines, which obviously we don't have that anymore, but because of those islands and everything, they're real deep classrooms.
And are we able to keep our current science teacher?
Oh, he's chomping at the bit to hope this goes full time. That's why he's coming and listening.
I have a final question.
Yeah.
Does he know anything about greenhouses?
I already approached that, and actually I looked through his transcripts, and he does have a background that would lend itself to be able to do plenty of things in the greenhouse along with his science classes.
Well, thank you for doing this. This was something that the board felt pretty strongly about. And
right.
So did...
It's our recommendation to make the increase.
Great.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along to action items. Item number 1, act on letter of retirement. Is there a motion on the floor? Maureen?
I move that we accept the letter of retirement.
Second.
Okay, motion by Maureen, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? All those in favor on approving the letters of retirement, raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Action item number 2, letters of resignation. Maureen?
I move we accept the 3 letters of resignation.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Maureen, seconded by Mark.
Slow.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Maureen? All in favor? Okay, good. That passes unanimously.
I was sleeping.
The next one. Item number 3, act on a request from administrator for payment of unused vacation time. Matt?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Matt, seconded by Mark to approve the payment for unused vacation time for Rita Keyless Glover. Is there any discussion? No. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the unused vacation time for Rita Keyless Glover, raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we have our 2021-2022 calendar. We have it in our board packet. Bob, is there any discussion needed before or introduction needed before we vote?
Yeah, so that the calendar components received input from the administrators and the teachers. So I worked through Kathleen and Jeanette to disseminate information out to the teachers and then get feedback. And we did not pull a committee together to work on the calendar because, people are focusing on COVID and how to do that. But we did get input from the teachers and the administrators. This year we had a special calendar because of COVID-19 and changes that were made at the State Board of Ed level with the additional PD days at the beginning of the year and fewer than 180 days. So we're back to more of a traditional calendar arrangement. We are maintaining the parent-teacher conferences at each of the schools in a similar fashion to what we're doing this year. The April vacation is in the 3rd week of April. We did that originally because we wanted to avoid the Connecticut SAT Day. Turns out that Connecticut SAT is moving online for next school year, and there's a window in March. But the input that we got back from administrators and teachers is to keep April vacation the way it currently is on the calendar. So we left it there. Okay, so I think that's the gist of it.
Any discussion on the school calendar?
I have a comment, but I don't know if it falls in this year. So have a discussion about what we're doing about snow days this year?
So we haven't had that discussion. Well, the topic was broached with the board, right? And I explained to the board that I would be seeking input from the teachers and the administrators, and that in my conversations with other superintendents, some of them were in favor of doing distance learning on snow days, and then others in their districts, they were not in favor of doing distance learning on snow days because some people felt like snow days get people a rest, from school. In our district, the feedback came back pretty mixed. Some folks, want to forge ahead and do teaching and learning on snow days and do it distance, and some came back saying no. And so we're mixed in our district. So we haven't really made a decision yet. The one thing that everybody wants to do is preserve that April vacation. So that we have the caveat that if we have X amount of days before a certain date, then we start taking days off of April. And so there is pretty much a unanimous feeling that if we were going to start to lose April vacation, that maybe we do use some snow days as distance learning days and count them as school days. The only issue is if we lose power on a snow day, then we cannot provide education because either our staff or our students or both may not be able to participate. And so that's really the unknown on a snow day or any kind of weather day.
So as it stands now, the snow days are snow days.
So that's the way it stands right now.
Wasn't there a point where the state said you couldn't use distance learning to cover snow days?
Yes, there was, right? And so that's a conversation that I've had with the board, but the state has adjusted their opinion on that and are allowing it if that's what districts want to try.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the school calendar for 2021-22? No. All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the 2021-2022 school calendar as presented, raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion. 2021.
Thank you. Thanks, Maureen. Okay, guys, it's going to happen, right?
We approve the presented 20. Make sure I get the right date here. 21-22 calendar.
Thank you, Maureen. Motion by Maureen, not me. Seconded by John. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And thank you. All right. Our next item on the agenda is to act on the FTE increase for 7th grade science position, which we just heard from.
Motion to approve the FTE increase for 7th grade science position.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Nicole, seconded by Danelle. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor of approving the 7th grade science position to a full-time? That passes unanimously.
There's still somebody voting in the back row.
All right, very good. The next item on the agenda is an anticipated executive session. Is there a motion on the floor? Matt?
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second. Invite me.
Are we inviting anybody?
We do need to invite Bob for the first part, yes. Great. Motion by Matt, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Melissa, I will give the rest to Maureen. Maureen, do you mind taking minutes?
I already got the time on my
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got right up and sent it to you and Chelsea. Chelsea takes care of it. Who's not moving it?
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's putting, no.
Nope. This is on contract for interim superintendent, action item number 1.
No, I don't
Alexis
take it that way.
Okay, so I just wanted you to have it.
Yep.